If you feel slow in longsword sparring, I want you to hear this. You're probably not slow, you're just standing wrong. And today I'll show you why fixing your stance and distance matters more than your faster reactions. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Michael Kozin and I have over 2 years of experience with longsword in historical European martial arts, which is basically a practice of sword fighting. I've trained and sparred and went to tournaments, and I know how hard it is, and I know why it really matters to have good distance management, but also how to stand correctly in a sword fight. I train under Polish HEMA world champions, and right now I help beginners to start their sword fighting journey without expensive gear nor without extreme fitness. And I used to think that I am slow too. Also, check out the link in the description, which is my free school community called START SWORDFIGHTING, where I've posted my free program for beginners on how to actually start training longsword, specifically step-by-step guide. So you don't even need to pay for anything, right? Just go and join us there. Point number 1, the wrong way beginners usually stand. So actually, beginners in a sword fight don't stand badly. They actually stand without intention. They don't know what they're doing. So most beginners pick some sword fighting stance randomly. They don't know why they stand like this. And also they aren't prepared to move in any direction, forward and retreating. It's hard to describe the wrong way of standing in your sword fighting stance, but it's very clear for more intermediate guys and advanced guys to see beginner stand in a weird way, because most of all, he probably has a locked posture, his uncertainty in his body posture, and his hesitation before real movement. So if you don't know why you're standing there in the first place, then your body will just naturally hesitate. Point number 2, the correct beginner fencing stance. Remember, the most important thing is your structure first, and your speed will come later. I will introduce you to the 2 variations of a fencing stance that you can use. The first one that I've already shown you in my previous video is the saber stance. It's where your main dominant hand, so for me it's right hand, is in front of me. My left foot, so my non-dominant foot, is turned between 45 up to 90 degrees to the left, and my right foot is in front of me, and then I bend my knees. This is the saber stance because your chest is turned a bit to the side naturally when you're staying like this. This stance is versatile between strikes and between defense, but most importantly, it has very good structure and it supports your way more advanced and harder footwork in the future. And the second variation of our fencing stance is the frontal stance. This is where your chest is pointing towards your opponent and your feet are also pointing towards your opponent. But your back foot may be turned from 0 to 45 degrees to the side. So this position, this frontal stance, is superior in very committed offensive actions, like for example very committed fléché movement. But also it has very strong defense on my outside line. So for me it would be my right side. Would you attack me from your left side, so from my outside line, I would be much faster and have more structure to defend my right side than just staying in the saber stance, because I'm already turned towards that side to parry you and maybe riposte. So there are common principles for both fencing stances. First thing first, both have knees bent a bit. You're a bit lower than usual. Also, you're relaxed. You're not stiffening up. You're not freezing up in moment. You feel relaxed. You feel a bit of like jumpy in a way. And that way, you're already prepared. You're ready for instant action in sword fighting. A good stance feels calm. It's not rushed. Point number 3 is distance before speed. Speed is very overrated in sword fighting. But there is a thing called effective distance, which not many people know about. So how we can define the effective distance in an actual sword fight? So your effective distance is you having the maximum potential of the reach of your sword when you extend your arms fully without bending forwards and not moving your feet forwards as well. So in my case, this is my effective maximum distance that I can reach my opponent when I strike him, without, of course, leaning forwards in the first place, right? Why do I even show you this? Because most beginners don't actually know their effective reach, and that's why they compensate their reach or the lack of it with panic movement. Beginners may think that it's way more important to have faster reactions in sword fighting. Of course, it's a very important part of sword fighting in general, right? But distance awareness removes the need to rush to your opponent without structure, without the plan, and just with panic inside of your head, with panic movements. That's what I mean. So, in short, if you know your distance, you don't need to have faster reactions, to be faster with your movement. You just need good timing. Point number 4 is about the correct movement order. So in this point, I will teach you the two patterns of fencing steps that you can use in sparring or in sword fighting. But of course, I planned them the correct way that you have to learn them. The first thing that you have to learn when you get into your fencing stance and start to move is the fencing step. The fencing step is a short, precise, and adjustable step that you can use to retreat from your opponent and to advance to your opponent. It allows you the exact forward movement and exact retreat. But most of all, fencing step teaches you control over speed or over reach. Also, the fencing step is called a shuffle step, if you don't know. The second footwork pattern that you have to learn after the fencing step is the passing step. So the passing step is more like walking, but in our case, it's more controlled. The thing about the passing step that it starts in a fencing stance and it ends in a fencing stance. Of course, the passing step can reach more distance if you need to, but it's less adjustable than the fencing step. But of course, the passing step, if you do it properly, builds good structure without chaos. And the third step that you have to know about is that your blade work comes after your footwork. So what I mean is the proper way to actually learn sword fighting is that you have to start from your footwork first and then add on the blade work to integrate it all together. Movement is superior to blade work. So without your footwork, every of your strike falls apart. Every of your defense is not complete. So your offense and your defense just break down without the foundation, which is your footwork. Blade work without footwork is just self-handicapping in a way. I'm not against the blade work, don't get me wrong, but footwork is not an extra to you swinging a sword. It's the foundation of everything that you do with your sword. Point number 5, how it really translates to your sparring. This is where beginners actually start to feel the change. So the thing like better footwork and better distance management leads to you having better threat management in sword fighting scenario when you're actually fighting against someone. So it also leads to you having less panic, which also means that your decision making is way faster. If you're a beginner, then in your next sparring session, you should focus on your balance on your footwork first. So on your proper structure without actually rushing in without having the foundations learned yet. So you add on more footwork gradually to your fencing stance, to your structure. And you have to trust me that your speed will develop naturally if you just stick to training your structure first. So in a way, becoming faster is a side goal, it's not an end goal. The one thing that you should get away from this video is that speed comes from good basics, not from forcing yourself to move faster. Listen, feeling slow is natural. It's completely normal because you're anxious, because you feel nervous with a sword, right? Feeling awkward is just a part of learning sword fighting. But of course, remember the steps that you have to do in order, which is most important thing that you have to start from is your stance. Then you have to translate to your footwork, then to distance, and then at the end to the blade work. If you're a beginner, if you're a newcomer, just stick to training the basics. Of course, remember to stay patient because results don't come fast in real life. It's not a video game, right? You just have to keep showing up, just as I did around 2 years ago or even 1 year ago, and still I do show up even when I fail most of my sparring sessions, even when I just lose against just better opponents than me, right? That's why I want you to stick to this path, even when it's hard, because it's rewarding when you actually start to improve and you see it. So that's why I also want you to recommend to join my free community, link in the description. It's my mission to actually help you out as a beginner, as a newcomer, to stick and to train with good structure longsword, because it's my favorite weapon. So in this group, this is where you actually can talk with me one-to-one and ask for advice. But also in this community, you can ask advice more advanced guys who just joined to help out beginners out. Yes. So check out the link in the description and join us. And remember, always take the initiative.